Hi guys, good to have you back, and today we're talking about Deep Purple. Now I was thinking through kind of lockdown, thinking of the bands that really inspired me and the musicians that inspired me, and I think when it came to the kind of hard rock edge to my playing, which I love, which I get a chance to do in blues bands like the Sibun blues band and so on, that really came from a few places. It came from, believe it or not, Buddy Rich, which I'm not talking about today. I'm not going to talk about him today, that's for another video. But it actually came from, I guess, sort of like the holy trilogy of like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple. Now, I don't have many Sabbath albums. I've got 4 or 5 Zepp albums. But the band that really, and this isn't a better who's best thing, you know, because it's highly subjective, just for me, my favourite band of them all was Deep Purple. I think there was, not just because of Ian Paice, I think there was something about Ian Gillan's vocals. You know, I love that trade-off he used to do on Strange Kind of Woman with Richie, where Richie would play some crazy lines, and then Ian Gillan would sing them back to him, you know, getting up into all kind of high registers and stuff. Also the Hammond organ, man, that's how I fell in love with the Hammond organ, I think, was through John Lord. In the early days when he played it through a Leslie, that was brilliant on the earlier records. And then like from In Rock onwards, when he put it through a Marshall stack to compete with Richie, and you've got that very overdriven kind of sound. It's just so exciting. And I think for me, because I had the video Song Remains the Same by Led Zepp, and you know, you always had to, John Paul Jones would have to go and play the keyboard. If you had to play keyboard, then you'd come back to play bass, and there was always a sound missing because there's only 4 of them. Whereas with Purple, it was 5 of them playing all of the time, if you see what I mean. So that's why, for me, the Zepp albums are great, because they can obviously overdub, but the live stuff is still exciting, obviously, but it never had that same depth that Deep Purple had, where they could swap solos between keyboards and guitar without sacrificing the bass or something, you know. And yes, definitely for me, Deep Purple stand above. And also the fact that John Lord was playing a kind of a jazz instrument made me then sift through my dad's record collection to see if he had any more Hammond organ albums. And I did find some Jimmy Smith, and I've got a Jimmy Smith over there, I think, by chance. That was just by chance, honestly. And some others I can't remember now, but you know, I've got them in storage somewhere, so I should dig them out. But Purple obviously had Ian Paice on drums, and again Bonham. You cannot like Bonham; he's amazing. But for me, you know, and I think I saw Thomas Lang talk about this as well. Pacey just had something else going on, because the band was a bit more fiery than Led Zepp, you know, sort of less blues based, and they were kind of messing about with all kinds of things, from jazz idioms and classical idioms and so on and so forth, in the studio and live. So of course Ian Paice had to, if he had to play a jazz swing, he could do it. He could lay into that jazz swing on one of their sort of half an hour wig outs, like on Space Trucking or something. Or you have to play, you know, crazy fast, heavy stuff for the time. He was there too. But he was also setting the band up a bit like a big band drummer. You know, he was, before a phrase, he would sometimes play things into it or back out of it and things like that, because obviously he loved Krupa and Rich and Louis Belson and all those guys, and you can hear it in his playing. And he brought that to, you know, a late 60s, early 70s rock setting. And it's just incredible. I just love that. So for my age group, I suppose I was 12, 13. I was aware of jazz through Dad, and he would explain to me how big band drummers would set things up. And then I remember one day he pulled this record. Now this isn't the original one, unfortunately, because he lost his copy somewhere. But this is my copy of Deep Purple with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Malcolm Arnold. And this is got, like, I think it's like 3 suites on here, three parts of 3 movements for a suite of music. And it's a bit battered, my copy, as you can see. It's been well loved and taken to a few parties and bits and bobs. But the drum solo that's on it is amazing, and I was really disappointed when I bought the video, as it was back then, from W.H. Smith's, because they edited the drum solo, so you only get the first bit, first quarter of it really, and then you just get the cowbell bit coming out the back end, really badly spliced together. It's such a shame because this solo is amazing. It's not the only solo I'll talk about, but the playing on this is superb, and considering that Ian couldn't read any music and probably still can't, he learnt it all by ear, and that's incredible as well. So he had a little strip of paper apparently with just some notes on. I play this there and then, look for Richie when he does this, look for John when he gives me the nod, on such a fantastic piece of music. Having something just like on a shopping list of like when to come in and when to come out, it is phenomenal. But when you're that talented, you know, it's all good. And of course the writing's great. John Lord, you know, I think wrote a great piece of music here, and they used to perform it up until before John left the band. I think they would still go out and perform it around Europe and different parts of the world. And for the drum solo, it was just exciting. It was very fast snare drum work, and you know, I could hear the Buddy Rich influence in there, and he would go to his hi-hats a bit like Buddy Rich used to do, and he'd play around his cymbals, and you could clearly see that he'd been to Ronnie Scott's a few times and seen Buddy play, because he was given his younger man's version of it. And you know, that Ludwig super classic kit sounds fantastic in the Ringo Oyster, looks great, sounds great, and it's just I think a phenomenal record and solo performance. And also what gets me about this is there's various bits come in, like Richie's solo. I think he plays very lyrically in this, because sometimes he can be a little bit guilty of you know, being very angular and weird with his playing and going to places, again, which in a minute we'll talk about. But you know, on this he kind of played in rather than played out too much, and I think it really suits the music. So his taste meter was very good, it was very high, and he's playing great. And obviously Roger Glover as well, everyone, Gillan's doing a great job. It's just, for that time, you know, of rock band meets orchestra, could be seen as a bit of a pretentious thing, but you know, and high art and all this business, but maybe it was, but hey, it worked. And you know, if I hadn't heard and discovered this record, I wouldn't have heard a really good Hammond solo that's, I can't remember, I think it's on the third movement as well, with the drum solo. There's a little Hammond organ bit, and it starts with a press roll, and Ian Pace goes into this like a triplet E Elvin Jones type thing around the toms and the ride cymbal, very jazzy. And John Lord just plays a beautiful Hammond solo, and it just, every now and again I listen to it and it brings the hairs up on the back of my neck and tear to the eye sometimes. It's just because I remember the excitement of being 12 or 13 listening to that for the first time, that swell, that, you know, that gliss when he got up the keyboard and he starts playing up the high end and pulls out those drawbars. Amazing. So yes, Deep Purple, the Philharmonic Orchestra, very nice. And I'm not going to pull all the records out, be here for ages, but obviously In Rock was important to me for obvious reasons. Flight of the Rat is amazing, and Speed King, and his drumming on Living Wreck is amazing, and the track Child in Time. You know, it's just not always about the drumming, it's about the whole band. But this one has to be mentioned because this was like the second or third one that I ever got, which was made in Japan, which is just incredible. And if you haven't heard this album, if you're not into the orchestra thing, if you haven't heard this, you've just got to hear it. It's an amazing, amazing album, double album. It's just kicking from, and what I love about it is that they come out, and it's a bit like when you see the Stones and the Beatles back in the day. They didn't have anyone, they didn't come on and say, oh, here they are. I mean, they might have had that, like, here they are, the Beatles, and like, but they come out and then they're tuning up a bit, and it's like, hi everyone, they're just tuning up, you know. And even rock bands in '72, when this was recorded, Purple come out and do the same thing. So they come out and the crowd are cheering, and he's trying his snare drum and bass drum and tom, and John's messing about with the drawbars, playing a bit, and Richie's ding dong dong ding, and then all of a sudden the snare drum thing starts for Highway Star, and it's just exciting. And from the minute he plays bam bam boom, nobody gonna take, you just like grabbed and pulled. I mean, and I've been listening to that for too many years, and it still makes me feel that energy of, oh my god, we're off. And that gig just doesn't let up. From the minute he kicks those cymbals in and they're off, man, they're on that freeway and they are going. And it's great, and his drumming through all of that is amazing. The Hammond solo on that is amazing. Richie's guitar playing, just, he messes with the whammy bar and takes us some really weird places that I know some guitarists say, I can't listen to Richie Blackmore because he starts okay, he'll weave some lines that are nice, but then he ends up going way off and wacky. To me, that's brilliant, that's what I love. you know, me and Chris, my friend, have a running thing about blues, and you know, everything comes from the blues, and you know, that kind of thing. We know that, and it's amazing. But sometimes, you know, even if you're not a guitarist, you can sit there and think, well, he or she might go here, oh, that lick might come, and I can't play the instrument, but sometimes I can sort of guess where they're going to go, and it's a little bit like, as good as it can be played by numbers sometimes, whereas Richie will do that for a while, then he'll suddenly go, right, I'm going over there, then I'm going over there, I'm going over there, and if you don't like it, well, that's fine, because I'm going to go, and it just makes me go, yes, someone who isn't just playing the blues licks and just doing that, you know, or the rock licks or the jazz licks, he's doing that, and then maybe a bit of bark in there as well, then he's off on some random thing with feedback, and anyway, I just find it, as you can tell, very exciting. Again, if you haven't heard this record, you should, no matter what instrument you play. Gillan's voice on it is great. I mentioned the trading on Strange Kind of Woman between him and Richie, where Richie will try and play the toughest thing he can that's going to be harmonically weird, and I think there was a lot of sparring going on there as well, like personality wise, as we know. That's why they split up a number of times. Just their trade-off on that is exciting. Listening to that again as a 13-year-old, turn it up on the stereo, and mum hitting the broom on the ceiling saying "sharp." It was just like, this is rock. This is, you know, this is all my angst is leaving me. This is amazing. And that energy is great, and I've seen them a few times live with Richie as well back in the day. And you know, they might not be playing at the speeds they used to play, and Ian doesn't do the things. But then again, hey, you know, you mature and you play differently when you get older. And I like what he does on the newer albums. I think the newer albums are fantastic. I've got most of those on CD, and I think they're incredible, and they're in the car every now and again. So Deep Purple, you know, they taught me a lot. You know, after the sort of jumped off the Beatles and that sort of thing, you know, the next springboard up was that, listening to that kind of rock, and as I say, Led Zeppelin too. But obviously, you know, Zeppa, massive, and they're in there in my head too, and in my musical psyche, of course. But as I say, Deep Purple, I give it to them really, because they introduced me to so many different nuances in the music and the sound that I take with me when I'm doing blues and rock gigs or blues rock sessions. Ian Pace is in there, all that band is in there for a reference point. So thanks for tuning in. Leave in the comments below any of the Deep Purple records you like or would recommend, or what you think about these, and I'll be back with another one of these soon. Okay, take care guys.